Welcome back to the Hardcover Podcast, Vampires.
I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Peyton.
and today we're reviewing one of our most anticipated reads of the year, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by Miss V.E. Schwab. This follows the tale of three women from different time periods. We have the 1500s, the 1800s, and modern day, as they maybe, become vampires or something. It's time for some toxic lesbian vampires, people!
So, jump to the cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets. Alrighty, we're jumping right into our non-spoiler section, and when I think about this book, the first thing I think about is characters. This is such a character-driven story.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I actually it's a character-driven story, but there's three of them and it's 600 pages,
600.
which I will say I love this book so much. I want to start off with that.
Yeah.
But 600 pages of a character-driven story is a lot. But these characters are great. I think V.E. Schwab actually classified our three women in a really interesting way. She said they all are following something, but one follows by their hunger, one follows their head, and one follows their heart. And you can tell immediately, like, when you like start reading, you're like, oh, this one, this one, this one. And I think that the fact that V.E. Schwab jumped into these characters and looking at these three different women, being like, this is what's going to distinguish them, is how they're reacting and making decisions. Because it's a vampire story, okay?
Yeah.
We all know, like, oh, you're become a vampire. That's crazy. Now you're dead. Now you have to drink blood. Like, there's so much like classic vampire lore going on that coming at the book with this perspective of, but how is each woman going to react to basically the same thing, is where this book like gets its meat.
Yeah, that funny.
No pun intended.
So I agree with you. And going into this, vampire stories have been around for centuries, and to the extent that when someone, especially in my fantasy novels, I can pick out like a few in my head. I'm actually reading one right now. The idea of having vampires in it actually makes me feel like it's like, oh my gosh, here we go, because vampires and werewolves, like, they're so overdone because they've been around for so long. But I know how V.E. Schwab writes, and her writing is really one of a kind, I feel. And I know she loves a good character-driven story. And so I was like, how is she going to take vampire and vampire lore and something someone goes into and kind of already knows those, like, conventional world-building things about this type of species?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, how is she going to have fun with that in this, like, modern day setting? And I have to say, I really like how these characters all dealt with that lore and what she took and what she didn't take, and also how she worked that into her writing to make us feel like, okay, cool. So they can be near garlic and they could be in the sun. It's not going to kill them. But, like, they're sensitive to the sun. Or, like, I love in this book, they definitely have with the vampire lore, like, you cannot enter a vampire's territory.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was like one of the coolest elements of like the world building in this book.
Interesting. I just feel like I'm such a like Vampire Diaries girly that I was like, oh, that's vampire number one.
I'm just happy she kept that. And, like, because there's different things that, like, you know, your, like, classic Halloween-y vampire stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no.
No, this is definitely, like, V. Schwab doesn't have paranormal vampires. She has folklore vampires.
Yes.
And I think you can feel the difference in those stories. She actually, one of my favorite things that is in the vampire lore, because obviously, like you said, you have to take the things that, like, everyone goes into a vampire book knowing what vampires are, and they're all gonna have all these like preconceived notions of what vampires can and can't do, because vampires are so like monolithic in our culture. So you have to like pick and choose. And the fact that she included this, there's a scene with graves, and specifically how like vampires can be affected by graveyard soil. I had never seen that bit before, and I was like, oh my God, This
Like,
is
duh, that
so cool.
makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense, and
Yeah.
it, like, plays upon, like, coffins and how you can see that in other bits, but, like, the vampires in this, like, cannot be at a grave because it's, like, calling to, like, their dead essence, and, like, it's natural for the dead to be in the ground. I don't know. It was so fun. I loved how she made vampires, like, still clearly drawing from things like Interview with a Vampire, number 1, obviously, but making it her own in other ways.
Yeah, and also just modernizing it to obviously this is a story that starts us in the
Yes.
1500s and takes us to 2019. And
Mhm.
this, as we said, is a very character-driven story. We follow 3 women, one in the 1500s, one in the 1800s, and then one in our present day. And so these 3 women, we really this is the best way to explain this book. And I
Mhm.
think if you haven't read this book, this will help you a lot. Um, I feel that this book lacks proper plot because it's written in the sense of like a journal. I feel like I'm reading these women's journals as I'm reading them, and piecing them together creates an overall plot of the story. We're not it's almost like all these side quests that add up to like a big
Mhm.
ending. And it's almost like Frankenstein in that way, if anyone's ever read Frankenstein, like, going it all the way back. It's very much like stream of thought, like, this is what happened, and, like, this is where I was at that point in my life, and then it jumps to a different time. And you as a reader, you piece all of these different things together, and also how these women's stories, really 2 of them, intertwine to kind of
Yeah.
lead to this, like, big ending. And so I think that when especially in a fantasy book, having characters be at the forefront of that plot that's driving that, I think that sometimes that can deter people, and usually does myself. In this instance, I don't know, maybe my, like, reading comprehension has gotten better over the years, but I found myself actually enjoying this book, but I do think there's a caveat to that because I don't think that's everyone's cup of tea.
No, you have to like character stories and you have to like sitting with the prose in order
Yeah.
to enjoy this length of a novel. I think
Yeah.
I read last year A Dowry of Blood, which is about Dracula's bride, and it's told through her perspective, actually in like a very diary journal entry, like hitting that thematic like theme a little harder than this book. Um, and that book's like 200 pages. So if you just want like you just want to vibe with vampire, with prose, and with like history and going through like the eons the way this book does as well, that's perfect. This is like this is for, I would say, an advanced reader.
I
I
do,
don't think you
yeah.
have to be an advanced fantasy reader, but I
No.
think you have to be willing to give like a proper, it's like lit fic molded with fantasy,
Oh,
because lit fic isn't
absolutely.
long, but this is long and beautiful,
Mhm.
but long.
But it's long. It's long. What I love about this is the term the coin from this book, also in marketing, is toxic lesbian vampires. And let me tell you,
Beautiful.
all the like our main characters in this book, morally gray to the extent of like, hey, what's going on there? And we're gonna talk more about that in the
Hey.
spoiler section. But if you love morally gray characters and kind of seeing maybe like the descent into possibly something even deeper than morally gray, I think that this is a great book for you. Um, I will say, so I think it was interesting, Aubrey, how you said the hunger, heart, and head, and I think that's
Mhm.
perfect for these vampires. Our first
Yeah.
vampire in the 1500s, she is stubborn and selfish and hungry all the time, always living through life for herself. Whereas we get to the Heart Girl in the 1800s, and I feel like she, out of everyone, has the biggest character arc in the book. She's
Yeah.
the one that I liked the best to read. And I feel like her character changes the most through the book, and I think she bridges the gap between the hunger and the head.
Yeah.
Whereas our heads are present day
Mhm.
girl, and why I really actually have come to respect Alice, that's her name, there's no spoilers in that one, our girl set in 2019, is that we actually dive into elements of grief and sisterhood and
Yeah.
girlhood and trying to be accepted in the world she lives in. Whereas I think there are themes of that in the other two girls, women's POVs, but they get so corrupted over time as you go through different decades that they kind of lose the plot a little bit of like that theming. So I'm curious if that was V.E. Schwab's purpose going into that, to kind of have the complexities and like show the difference of the three women that way, or she was just like, "Nah, I'm gonna have a good time. These women live a long time, and we're gonna like fuck some shit up."
I think she has noodled with this story for a very long time. I think there's a lot of intentional things in there. But like also, yeah, we do just go through time and watch vampires be vampires. And some of those are my favorite scenes. Like watching vampires be like, "Hey, and then I spent 100 years killing men." And I'm like, "Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Pop off."
Well, for our Addie LaRue fans here, I feel like
Yes.
V. Schwab's most famous book is The
Yeah.
Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. We have read that. And V. Schwab's writing in general, looking back at Addie LaRue, I'm like, oh my God, that was such a good book. While I was reading Addie LaRue, I was like, oh my God, like, let's carry on. Like, I felt so trapped in it. But looking back, I
Yeah.
really respect that story. I think this book has Addie LaRue vibes 120%, but adding in these different characters and the element of this vampire fantasy, it does excel that story that you feel like you're on more of like a fantastical plot line than just stuck in the monotony of this girl's life. And, Addie has a curse that everyone forgets who she is. And so that kind of gets old by the end of Addie LaRue. Whereas in this book, they do have the character arcs of the people we meet in the beginning of the book are not the people we meet by the end of the book.
No, yeah, I think the perfect way to describe this is that Bury Your Bones is the darker, older sister of Addie.
Oh,
Like Addie
absolutely.
laid this foundation and is sitting in like the prose and the character. I mean, that is a character story
Oh
through
my
and
gosh.
through.
Mm-hmm.
But because this one not only has three characters, so that way you have like three stories that are unfolding, but like you said, the vampire of it all allows you to have some action, allows you to have like some fast moving parts that you might have been missing in Addie. So I think almost we read this with our book club. And out of the 30 women who were reading it, if they also read Addie, a lot of them still liked this one more. And a lot of them weren't fantasy readers and still liked this one more, which I think is amazing. Like you're
Yeah.
always trying to improve, and Addie is
Yeah.
so good. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
taking a book that is truly tremendous and then being like, "Hey, this one has the potential to be better."
Yeah.
And the most exciting thing of all, they are actually set in the same universe. So, V. Schwab has written a lot of books, and she has series that are totally unconnected and separate from Addie LaRue. But there is actually an Addie Easter egg in
Yes.
Bury Your Bones that as soon as you read it, you'll be like, "Yep, there it
Ah, if you
is."
know, you know, right?
And it actually made me really excited to see more books in this world. I don't know if V.E. Schwab has that planned,
Yeah.
but through Alice, our Modern Girl Days POV, something that was really interesting about that is that our girl in the 1500s and our girl in the 1800s, right? You don't have the internet. You don't have like public libraries a lot of the time. So, like, you become a vampire and you have to just rely on your gut or the people around you to guide you through that process and, like, maybe some folklore stories. Alice has Google. And so very like reminiscent of like Bella in Twilight Googling
Yeah.
like cold ones, vampires, but like that's exactly what you would do. And so it was really fun to deal with vampires in the modern day and like how that's going to look so different when you have the internet, when you have clubs, when you might have a cafe for all of you who finished the book already. Like the cafe scene, no spoilers, was my favorite scene because I
Yes.
loved seeing the depth of this world outside of, because like, and Addie LaRue, Addie is just dealing with her own shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she does not realize that there is a whole supernatural world around her. But through Alice's POV, we really get to see like how exciting this world could be.
Day in the
And
life.
day in the life. No, literally, literally
Yeah.
Alice's POV, because the framing of this story, Alice, you watch her become a vampire, and you obviously, like, we don't make it to COVID time. Like, it's said in 2019 to not see COVID, and we do not see COVID. So we see like 2 weeks or so of Alice's timeline. And so it feels like a day in the life where you have our character who starts out in the 1500s and you're watching like centuries of her life unfold.
Yeah, I definitely which if you get to the end of this book and we're going to jump into in literally 10 seconds, I like that was set up for Alice because she's gonna need it. Let's jump into what we gave this star rating wise.
Yes.
Aubrey read this a bit ago, and so she's had time to sit on it. I do think V.E. Schwab books are better, like consumed and like sat with. Like I need to sit my
Yes.
tea for a little bit on my back porch before I give you like my real, starred review a couple months later. But what do you have for us?
So, interestingly enough, when I finished this book, I was really mournful about what I had to give it, and I'll go into that. But I started with it just being a flat 4. Now I'm at a 4.5.
Hey,
Now, I like, literally, it is such a series where like it kind of like erodes and wears down on your
it does.
critiques because you're left with such good memories. And it's such a long book, like 600 pages, guys. Again, for a character driven story is insane. And that's part of the reason I can't give it 5 stars. And I'm so upset that I can't give this 5 stars because it is a book I want to give everyone. I want to shout about this book, and I will continue to talk about this book endlessly. But it's sad because a lot of those books that I have such like, I need to share, I want everyone to read it. Like, usually those are your, like, I want to put this in my top 5 and I didn't give it 5 stars. That doesn't like the two things don't match.
Yeah.
Ma-
Mesh.
mesh, whatever. Um, but that said, I can't give it 5 stars. Not only because it's a little long, but I think it's long specifically in one regard, and that regard is Alice's POV. Our lovely modern day girl, there are some things that I love, but she is in no way comparable to the other two characters
Yeah.
in terms of what she's going through, in terms of backstory, in terms of personality, in terms of like things that I want to latch onto in the story. I didn't care so much about Alice's POV. And it really hurts the novel because she's one of the main 3 characters.
Yeah. And I think V. Schwab did that to give her
Mhm.
more room to stand on to be a main character since we have
Yeah.
all of these stories of the first two women that they're like, we need to give her some trauma or something to stand her 2 feet on to be like, I've lived life and I have felt this way because she's like 18 or 19. Like she's so
Yeah,
young.
she's a
And
college kid.
so with that being said, I feel the exact same. I would love to rate this 5 stars, but seeing some critiques online and then also my own personal, like while reading it, knowing
Mhm.
how I felt, there's no way I could give this 5 stars. I want to give it 5 stars. So I think that should speak volumes for this book for V.E. Schwab. This is definitely going to land at a 4.5 for me. I would love to also put it on my top 5 for the year because I did genuinely love. I was surprised because I thought this was gonna. I don't like different dual POVs. I don't
Yeah.
like character driven stories. Like it's not me. That's why I was like, maybe I'm like growing as a reader. Because I
Maybe
really
my palette's expanding.
yeah, like maybe I'm getting like smarter. But yeah, so I definitely think that it deserves its flowers. There are some key things, length, some character things, maybe where we went with the plot at times. I was like, like I don't know. But it has the hardcover stamp of approval, and that's all you need to know.
Yes.
Well, with that being said, we're going to transfer into some spoiler things. So if you haven't read the book yet, it's a good time to skedaddle because
Addie.
we are going to jump right into this crazy ending. All right. We got a double
Guys.
murder. We got a villain. Like, we've got a lot going on. What were you expecting the ending to look like? Do you remember, like,
Yeah.
what you were hypothesizing? I know I think maybe we thought different things and were
Oh,
surprised about different things.
interesting.
So I'm curious.
So I think like the biggest thing in the book is I'd say the biggest theme, which is crazy that a theme is a spoiler, but the biggest theme is like how your humanity can be eroded over time of this
Yeah.
idea of taking vampires and you're slowly going to lose parts of yourself until there's only like a shell and like a monster left. That's so interesting. Watching Sabine become your favorite character to like maybe still your favorite character, but the villain.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I was expecting at the end Sabine to be killed. That was not a surprise at all. Watching Charlotte, who heavily through her POV, you see as this like almost like innocent dove,
Yeah.
and then flipping right at the end and looking at her from Alice's POV, and Alice being like, "You're just as bad. Like you're or maybe not just as bad, but like you're also a villain. Like just because you are not Sabine's psycho
Yeah.
killer
Yeah.
does not like for pardon you of your crimes, and you're just as bad, and you also need to die, and your humanity has also been eroded." That jaw on the floor, like it ending in with this almost Romeo and Juliet level of like tragedy where 2 out of 3 of our main characters are dead.
Oh, I know. And I agree with you. Like Sabine, halfway through the book, you're like, you're the villain. You're
Yeah.
horrible. Like, and it is heartbreaking. But then at the end, like, V.E. Schwab really was like, girl, take off your rose colored glasses. Like, I
Yeah.
love Charlotte and I was defending her rights and wrongs. And it wasn't until Alice was like, literally, no. And I think this is where in the non spoiler section, I was like, I don't really know what she was trying to get across here. Because in the beginning of the book, it was a lot of, like, fuck the patriarchy, feminists, like, we are now free women. We can do what we want to do. And
Mhm.
then as the book goes on, we slowly see that these women, it's not giving feminism because these women are becoming the monsters that they were trying to kill. Like the abused are becoming the abusers. And mind you, by the end of the book, the women are only hurting the women.
Yeah.
We go from like killing men and like get out
Uh-huh.
of like, and then all of a sudden it's like, what happened? And I think that's where I feel like V.E. Schwab is so brilliant. There is something to be said about that. But then also, it's like, okay, so what is the point? Maybe that we get so caught up in our own heads that we lose why we started something in the first place and we end up going a different direction because they are alive for so long. But this really showed me that Alice's only reason to be in this story was for these moments. And I
Yes.
think that's where my 4 stars stands
Mhm.
correct because it's like, oh, girl was just there for the end. Got it.
Alice literally was just there because they needed someone to kill Sabine
You are
and
a plot
Charlotte.
device. You are not a character. You are a plot device. Yeah.
And then what's so infuriating about that is the book ending. What is the last line? Because it really pisses me off. And I saw a TikTok that actually, when the arcs were sent out, the last line of the book was different.
Oh.
So it ends with Alice like walking away and feeling like almost powerful, and it's alive, alive, and she is hungry. And so the end of this book is actually the cycle starting up again.
I know.
It's
It's
Alice
depressing.
pointing that out, which I do kind of love. I
In
don't
like
love
a
that it ends.
fantasy, like thrillery, like fun kind of way,
Yes.
it's like, and it begins again. But
I
as like,
like a sad ending,
but
but
since you put
Alice
such,
didn't deserve that.
I know.
Alice, okay. I want to come back to one thing that you said, but while we're on the topic of Alice and all of this, I think that this book would have been so much better if 150 pages were cut from Alice's POV. Specifically, we don't need any of the backstory. I literally do not give a shit about you and your sister. Like, one chapter of that could have been fine, but
Yeah.
it going on and on and on to just be like, oh, and she was dead.
And
Yeah,
I'm
like I could
grieving.
have guessed. I think that this Alice's POV should have been the frame story. So if you think back to another classic book that I'm sure almost all of us have read, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. When you think about that book, you're probably not thinking about Monique. You're
No.
probably not, but she is like the first chapter and the last chapter. She is this frame story to see and uncover Evelyn's.
And
Like,
glued all
she
together.
has a tiny character arc. Like, she has the thing like with her mom
And
and
husband
maybe
or
husband. It's
yeah.
been a while since I've read the book. But again, she has a story. She stands on her own legs, but her purpose is very clearly defined as feeding Evelyn's story. And Alice's purpose really is to just feed Sabine and Charlotte's story. She doesn't like the cafe scene was the only like part that I really liked. I think we could have gotten like four, maybe five max chapters from Alice. Felt the same amount of attachment to her because I understand you want to be invested into this character to feel like her murdering Charlotte is justified.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
didn't sympathize with her. Like,
No.
people were talking about, like, she has a scene where she's like, "You used me just the same," and I was like, "I don't care."
Shut up. I'm like,
I was like,
yeah, they're like,
I see your point about
yeah.
Charlotte, like, being a killer too. Like, yeah, I get it. Charlotte probably did have to die, but I don't care at all that she manipulated you.
Yeah, I know. Like, I was like, when Charlotte was like, and she was yelling at Charlotte, I was like, get away from my Lottie girl. Like, I
Yeah.
love Charlotte. And then, so when at the end, I was like, oh, wait, yeah, she probably should have died. Like, you know what? This one's on me. Alice was right. But I was so frustrated with Alice and Alice's story that I was like, I don't care. Like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with it. But what do you want to get back to?
Okay, so you brought up the fact that like it's kind of like women on women crime at the end, and
Yeah.
it's like you're like feeling like your moralities of being like, is this feminist by the time we get to the end? I don't know the full process of V. Schwab writing this book, but I've watched a decent amount of her interviews and videos, especially like back when it came out. And she talked about how like the story always started with Sabine. And when she was planning Sabine, she wanted her to be a lesbian and she wanted her to be a villain. And you run into issues with like readers and publishing and everyone to be like, oh, you're only gonna have one gay character and she's gonna be villain and horrible and a monster. And
Yeah.
so that's why all of the other women are gay. She said, "Oh, you think you want to flag that as an issue? I'm going to write them. They're all going to be gay. That way I can have a gay villain character."
That's like horrible and like interesting all at the same time in my head. But like,
So
okay. Yeah.
Alice exists to be our feminist.
Yeah. But then she
Because
has her list of people and she's like, oh, let me just make sure they're like Sabine's not killing them. And then she just gives up. She's like, I don't care. Like, I want to have an orgasm. And so, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, whoa, like, girls, like, hey, like, we're supposed to be like some men, like, huh? What?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, it made for a fun story.
It was so fun, and I think she wanted the toxic relationship of Sabine and Charlotte, and she needed all of that, and she probably went, "This isn't very feminist," and then
Yeah,
she was like, "So I'll give Alice, who is a Harvard student and
yeah.
a woman, and she will only kill men besides my two leads."
Yeah, so I think
Sure.
if we're coining this, like, I think toxic was very needed in the
Yes.
lesbian vampire bit, which I'm happy that they've pushed forward, and also just solidifies that this story is about
Mhm.
the corruption of values and of
And
yourself
self. Yeah.
instead of, like, feminism. But when I think of,
Which
like, my fellow lesbians, I'm like, "Yes, like, girl power, let's go," and then by the end, you're like, "This is not feeling very girl power. This is not feeling girl power to me." at
But you
all.
know what? There's so much straight media out there where you're like, I love the aesthetic. I love like this is a num 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 story, but like when I think about it, I'm like, there are some like issues here. So like the gays deserved one. The gays
Yes, here we are.
deserved a story where you're like, okay, these characters, we don't like their actions. They are not our like feminist examples. And like you can hold that and you can still like be like, this was an
Yeah.
amazing story. I love
This
it.
is like, yeah, I think we need to take like the whole feminist approach out of it. And because at book club, I
Yeah.
feel like the girls were like, yeah, girl power. But I'm like, no, this is a toxic lesbian story, period.
Even better.
And it's fun. So I think going into that, if you have that mindset, maybe you won't be like me at the end where I'm like, okay, but where's the feminism?
You're like, what happened here? It's like, no, this
No,
is the
corrupt.
gay. Yeah.
Corrupt. But I love it, and I love that they're all gay. I thought it was so much fun, and then all the other like like guy vampires in the story when Sabine's living with
Hmm.
Mateo, like loved that. Like I just loved those parts
Yeah.
so much. So I love reminiscing on all of that. So I am curious, what POV did you prefer, Sabine or Charlotte? Which one did you have more fun in? I'm gonna say right now, I like Charlotte's character better, but I'm a little conflicted.
Yeah, that's a hard toss up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you had to like play fuck, Mary kill, I'm obviously killing Alice's POV. But in terms of like which one I liked more between, I think Sabine. I think Sabine because it's
Yeah.
fun to be with the villain.
Yeah. I think her character, it is so interesting to me, and I think she's
Yeah.
that type of person that and I think Charlotte in the end still had love for her because she was that manipulative and toxic. And I gotta
Yeah.
say, like good for you. Like the fact that she could do that and swindle like her like that. I mean, she had so much game. Like I just thinking of moments like when she like swindles Charlotte at the
Mhm.
balls, the whole
Yeah.
Bridgerton vibes. I'm like, oh my god, she knows what she's doing. She knows
And that was so fun to
Yeah,
be in Charlotte's head for all of that. Like the last thing we see from Sabine is Sabine like looking at Charlotte and being like, "Oh, I've got a new game. I have a new game in mind."
I got a new toy.
And because before that, Sabine had been like, because she was doing those competitions to see how long she could go before like feeding and killing the person. And so she changed it. And it's like to see it from Charlotte's perspective, who's like unraveling it and becoming a vampire. But like from Sabine's perspective, when did it switch from I'm going to make this a game to I'm going to make this a partner?
Yeah. Oh,
It's so
absolutely.
juicy and I
It's so
love it.
juicy. So
And it
let's
makes me want to read Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, I know, right? I know. I'm like, I was so
Yeah.
over vampire things because that was like my whole childhood. And but now I'm like, you know what? Like,
It's like a resurgence.
yeah, like I really like it. Okay, so to end the main bits of this whole episode, the cool thing about this book is because it is so character driven, we were able to like really uncover a lot in the non-spoiler section. But
Mhm.
since we're talking about favorite moments, what are
Yes.
like some key moments of this book because it's so long, and there's so many different characters? What pops out in your head?
Okay, the grave scene for sure. I loved that of like Sabine like sinking in and then she like kills the like cemetery boy so that way she can like get out. Like those really rich and dark vampire moments I loved. I also loved there's a scene with Maria and Sabine before Sabine becomes Sabine. Like that the fact that Maria, like, you can watch the signs right away because she literally kills her maker, like, my jaw was on the floor. And that's fairly in the beginning. Like, that's within the first 100 pages. But there's a scene where the original Sabine is talking, and she's like, the only way we can have freedom as women in this world is to like be like a widow or something else. Like I wish I knew the exact quote. Maybe I'll find it and send it to you. Because I was looking for it for book club and I couldn't find it. But like there was such like V. Schwab's such a good writer, but sometimes you just find these like juicy little sections where you're like, okay, do I need a tattoo of this? Like, do I
Oh,
need
I
to break out a
know.
highlighter? Like, I loved that. How about you?
So I think I think back to when Charlotte goes like, "See Sabine," and like runs. I like love those scenes. But I forget her girlfriend's name that she ends up like falling
Oh,
in love with. But anyways, like the
yes.
really cute one that she's like, they like, go out to like dinner and she's like, "Oh, like you have to try this. It's like my favorite like ravioli or something." And she's like, "I'm not hungry." And to see someone accept Charlotte for who she really is and not like hate her because of it.
Yeah.
And then I really fell in love with them as a couple and their love story. And then it
Penny?
ends. Is that Penny?
I'm
No,
not
because
sure.
it's the one before that. I don't know, but
Mm.
regardless, seeing that and that's the girl that I think Sabine breaks her neck. I
Just
like
casually.
yeah. But anyways, yeah, I just that was the girlfriend. She's
Yeah.
like, "Why don't you turn me? Why don't you turn me?" She's like, "No, like you don't want this life for yourself."
Which is
I
interesting because if she had turned her, then maybe Sabine like wouldn't have as easily.
killed her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the whole chasing sequences to me,
Mhm.
from Charlotte's perspective, is really interesting because I was like the whole time
Yeah.
on the edge of my seat. And then I love all the Mateo Sabine chapters. Like those just warm my heart. Whereas like the Charlotte one, it's like once again like a Shakespeare like tragic thing. It's like wow, she really can't have anything. And I think that's where those rose colored glasses were like on my face because I was like, oh, she just wants to find someone to love Sabine.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. Meanwhile, she's also tainting Charlotte's like self.
Yeah.
So those in my head stick out. Of course, no Alice. I do love the whole Alice. Like she's goes to the bathroom and she's like sitting on the bed, like snoozing. I was like, this is awesome. This is
When we
modern day
start
shit.
the first chapter with Alice and her like really like dealing with her anxiety at the party, I was like, "Oh my god, I love this. I can relate so hard." And then I just couldn't care
Oh,
about
I
her
just didn't care.
backstory
I didn't
at
care.
all.
Sorry,
It got too
Alice.
long.
Sorry,
No.
not sorry, Alice. Well, I'm curious. Like we said, I think there's more to see in this Addie LaRue type universe.
Yes. I
Wishes
want
for
witches.
futures.
I want
Witches.
witches.
I was like, who are we gonna do next?
Yeah,
Witches. I
because
love
we
that
see
idea.
that one witch in the cafe, and she's like,
Yes.
yeah.
I and I think she may be setting us up for something. So, what are your if you're a V.E. Schwab fan, what are your wishes for future books? What did you like about Barrier Bones? What did you not like about Barrier Bones? Mind you, we didn't even talk about the poetic nature of what it means to bury your bones in the midnight soil.
Oh, the poem.
Like
It was so good.
love and so unique, and I loved it. So, with that being said, please like and subscribe. We have many more book reviews coming your way. We are jumping into the holiday season.
It's such a good like reader season is upon us. You know
No,
what I mean? Like
here for
I
it.
am ready to sit with a blanket and a cup of coffee and like cozy vibes.
And finish that reading challenge.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and happy reading.